Well, do you want to start now, or do you want to maybe talk first a little bit?
Let's talk a little bit. What did you want me to do? I wasn't completely sure. I thought you were going to ask me questions,
Well,
but I'm not
yes,
sure.
we're gonna ask you some questions. That's true. There's around 13 questions that we have for you.
Okay. Why don't you ask the questions, and then if you want me to talk more about my work, I could do that.
Okay, perfect. And well, I'm just gonna make a little introduction because this is something that we're gonna present to our teachers. So, Mauricio, this is Lydia Panas. She's a great photographer. She's residing in New York, and we're gonna start the interview right now. I'm a little bit sick, sorry. Okay, well, the first question is, how was your introduction to the world of photography?
How did I get introduced to photography?
Right.
I think it was mostly, I don't know. I think I always was kind of interested in it. I think I took pictures as a child, not real seriously, but I thought it seemed somewhat exciting. Though it's kind of interesting because I would take pictures on field trips.
Oh.
And I remember like going to museums and things on field trips with my teachers and taking pictures and bringing them home. And I remember my mother would say, well, what is that? You're not taking pictures of people. You're just, what are those things? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. So I took a photography class, I think in college and or in art school. And I think that, I always drew and painted. I was always very interested in art. And I guess ultimately I took this class and I learned sort of like from the teacher was very encouraging. And he told us, he somehow made it clear to us that we had something to say. And that made a big difference in my life, that somebody believed that like I could have a voice.
Right.
And I think that because of hearing him say that and feeling like somehow he believed that about us, I got more sort of confidence to take pictures. All I know is that since then I never put the camera down, and that photography worked for me better than like drawing and painting did. I mean, I always drew and painted as a child, but I think I was much more able to directly convey my feelings through the camera than I was through like lines, on a page. So I guess it was just, it's mostly, I suppose, that I am able to, that's why I do it, I suppose, just that it really is a very, very direct way. It works for me very directly. I love looking through the camera and being able to directly convey things that I feel and see. Oh. But I suppose it was partially interest and partially like the encouragement of a teacher.
I see.
Yeah, well, and so that's why when I teach, I try to be very encouraging too. I really try to spark people's imagination and confidence that they have something to say that's more interesting to me as a professor than the technique part. I teach technique, but I think it's my duty is to teach them to believe in themselves.
Right.
That's my job.
Oh, well, seems very interesting. Well, and the next question is, do you have memories from your first camera?
It's a very long time ago. I do have memories from my first camera. I remember it was a Canon, and I remember I never really understood it all that well, and that it got stolen in the move. I was in college, and I was moving from one apartment to another, and I was moving things upstairs, and I left the door open, and when I came back, my camera had been stolen.
Wow, that's sad. Sorry for that. Well, it can happen. People like to steal sometimes, I guess. The next question is, how do you describe your journey through photography?
It's an interesting question. It's a long question. It's a complicated answer. It's not that simple, but my journey, it is partially the vehicle with which I speak. I think I speak the clearest when I'm taking pictures. It's my most articulate. It's the most articulate piece of me. So I think it started out as as I said before, just as a way to, it taught me that I had something to say. And then over the years, I think that I've been working through a lot of my own thoughts. I've learned a lot about myself through my own photographs. With every project, even though there's a red thread that runs throughout the project, that connects all my projects, and each project builds upon another one. I think that each one addresses like a different issue that is really relevant to me and really important to me. So it's a very, very personal journey that I've taken through this photography, with the camera. I don't really consider myself a photographer as much as I consider myself an artist, and I'm much more interested in, I don't think that my work is documentary at all. I see it as much more of a direct expression of like who I am and how I see. And I think when you look at my photographs, really more of what you see is a sense of me. I think you're looking more at me, like when you look at these photographs. And I think it's complicated. It's twofold. I think it's a way to see me. I think it's also a way to see how I see. I think my photographs all contain so many aspects of myself, like my own fears and my own vulnerabilities, my strengths as well, my confidences, but also like the complex nature of my mind. So it's been an all-encompassing thing. It's really, really important to me. I don't do it because it's some hobby or it's some side thing. I do it because it literally shows me who I am to myself, and allows me to speak out in public too. Really, it's my public voice in a lot of ways.
Perfect, thank you. Just give me a moment before we can continue, because I guess that I just need to make this a little more bigger. Okay.
I can't hear. Are you talking? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. And the next question is, which one of your projects has been the most challenging for you?
Challenging.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting question. I think that each project is a challenge from the last one. Mm-hmm. So every time I start a project, I'm trying to challenge myself. It's more of an emotional challenge than anything else. And so what I do is I just set up different parameters. I try to make something out of conceivably nothing. I don't start with a concept. I just sort of take a picture and see if I like it. And if I like it, I take another one and see where it takes me. And so in a way, they're all challenging in that they have to be the most kind of important projects to me in terms of what I really care about. I mean, they're very, on some level, I find them anyway, very transparent, because if you look at my work all the way through, I think you'll learn a lot about how I feel, right. And just how what it feels like to be me. But I mean, it's interesting because they're both challenging, because I have to be very honest with myself, and I have to really be kind of courageous sometimes to put a lot of things out there, because to me they feel very, very personal, and I feel very exposed. So that concept is very challenging to me. But while I'm doing it, the actual taking of the pictures is kind of, almost spiritual. It's this really uplifting feeling. I love it. I get really I connect with myself. And so the actual taking of the pictures is an incredible high, really. It's the closest I feel to my real self when I'm taking pictures. So I think that's both challenging and incredibly uplifting. And so it's this combination. But I suppose the challenging piece is really being able to look at my own fears and try to photograph them and actually allow them to be exposed. I think that's probably the most challenging piece of it for me.
I see.
Because I feel so vulnerable with a lot of my work.
In which way? By telling people how you are and how you feel, or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think in exposing the things that, at least, I think in the kind of things that I expose, to me it feels, and I don't know how it looks to other people, but to me it feels very exposing.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
So
think
much
so.
about the things I've kept close to my heart for a very long time, the things I've hidden,
You're right. And
the fears
I see. And the next question that we have for you, in your work, there is a certain pattern for photographing women. Do you have a special feeling about that?
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely much more interested in photographing women. I think I'm better at it. I mean, I'm fascinated by women. I'm fascinated by women and like relationships, like my relationships with women. I'm fascinated by how I look at them. I'm fascinated by how I photograph them. I'm fascinated by what happens between us when I'm photographing them. I'm fascinated by their reactions to the images. I'm fascinated by my reactions to them. I mean, with men, I feel like they don't. Well, number one, I'm probably not as fascinated, but I think also they don't tend to show as much on their faces. They kind of tend to be a little bit more withheld. Like, I don't think they show as much. I think they've been taught sort of culturally to hold back their emotions. So I don't see as much in their faces or even in their postures. I think it's partially cultural, but I also think it's partially my interest in it, because I know other women who do photograph men, and for them that's really very interesting, and they do get good, results. I think for me it's just so much my fascination with women. That's probably the biggest part of this.
I see. So it's more about your interaction and what you want to get between that interaction. Is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's really, yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me it's so much about a certain kind of longing. I mean, I'm really very fascinated by women, and I want to be close to them, and I want to be able to look at them, and I want to see like what they look like through my lens. And when I look at someone through the lens, it's really very different from looking at someone just in real life. I think once they sit in front of my lens, they are, because I don't ask them to do anything. I don't ask them to pose. I really just ask them to be, either to just sit or stand, whichever the project is. And because they're not doing anything, like everything just kind of goes away. All the masks just kind of fall away. And I feel like what I'm connecting to is a certain piece of like their insides. I'm good at it. I can see things. I mean, I'm a really good observer. I mean, I've always been a very good observer. I come from a sort of a background where I kind of had to be just the way I was raised. I had to sort of be very watchful. And it has, it's partially, possibly I was born like this, like very, very aware, but also I had a mother who was a very aware kind of person. I think it sort of was brought down. But also I think that I have really cultivated that. I've learned how to watch out for everything, to watch things, to see things. I mean, I see a lot. So I'm just one of those people who can read people very. I had to do it really partially for all the moves I made as a child. We moved from country to country. I kept finding myself in a situation where I was the stranger and I didn't know how to read, who was in front of me. And so I really learned how to, really for my own self-preservation, I had to learn that. And it's been fascinating to me. I mean, I'm a very visual person. I learn through my eyes, like everything. I'm the kind of student who learns through seeing something done. My sense of vision is very, very keen in the way of like picking up on everything. I really don't miss a lot.
Okay. And the next question, let's see. Okay. And well, this is the next one. It's it's something that everybody wants to know, but especially Camila, she wants to really know about this. So, can you please tell us more about your inspiration method? If you do like some kind of brainstorming, or how is that you get prepared before to do a shoot, things like that.
I'm not a brainstormer at all. I don't. I mean, so I have somebody coming. First of all my photography is done at home. Like all my work is really about home.
Mm-hmm.
It's about home and trust and love and relationships and identity. Because of that, I bring everyone to my home, which is a place that I never felt for a very long time that I had a home. I was an immigrant, and it wasn't really until I moved to this farm out in Pennsylvania. I married my husband. I moved to this farm. We have 3 children. And I finally found a place to belong. And so that part of my process is to bring people here. Because it somehow is so much about what I know and what I love, and I think it moves my head in such a way that it's so much about me and my relationship to home and then to the world. So first of all, people come here. Mm-hmm. So I don't have to pack anything up. Everything is already here. The work is done either on my farm, which is like a big 70-acre farm, or it's in my studio, but basically the cameras are either inside or outside. I take them. I don't do anything. I don't know when they're coming. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I know, usually I know which project they'll be in because I ask them. I say, do you want to be in this project? I ask them. So I know exactly, what they should, if it's a project that is inside, it's usually a certain kind of clothing. And if it's a project that is outside, it's maybe a little bit of a different kind of clothing. So I say, well, if it's inside, will you wear either black or will you wear red or whatever the project calls for? If it's outside, maybe certain colors that have to do with the temperature and with the way the grass and stuff looks. But so until they show up, I do nothing, really. I don't do anything except have my film ready and my camera's ready. But once they come, all of my attention is on them. My brain goes there. And I am like a mother of a child on some level. I am all there for them. I'm all in. I'm attentive. I want them to be comfortable. I try to be calm. I try to make them calm. I never if I'm photographing them, I never say that's not good, or no, do this, or no, don't do that. I try not to inject any kind of negativity into it. I really, really just try to make them comfortable and make them feel welcome. And then I find a place. If it's outside, we'll find a place. We usually drive. I have a little tractor, and we all jump into the tractor, however many people it is. So we jump into this tractor. We take a drive around my property. It's kind of fun. And we find a spot, for an outside picture, and then I just have them stand up while we all get out. I set up the cameras. I ask them to stand somewhere. We kind of pick a place, and then I just look, and then I really just look, and it's while I'm looking, I am trying to understand who they are. I'm trying to understand who they are. I'm trying to understand who they are in relationship to what I know. So, who they are in terms of the deepest piece of them. And I try to connect to sort of a piece that is inside of them and is also inside of me. And what I photograph, I always say, is that piece that's inside of both of us. I try to connect to something inside of them. I try to understand something inside of them. And I just see it through. It's almost like I can see right through them. I don't know anything. It's not information. It's just all feeling. But I feel something that they feel. I can feel it. And that's what I try to photograph. And it's... At first, it's always, I'm a little anxious. Oh, that's the other thing. Before they come, I am anxious, always very anxious. I'm always afraid that I'm nervous. I'm afraid that I won't see anything. I'm afraid that I will disappoint them. I'm afraid I will disappoint me. I'm afraid nothing will happen. I won't really understand anything. The relationship won't happen. The connection won't happen. So then I have to rely on the photographic session, and as I'm photographing, I start to take pictures. I start to see who they are. I start to see what's more comfortable for them in terms of how they stand and how they look. And I can feel it. I get very, very excited at a certain point. I start to see, it's oh my God, now this is it. This is the connection. I feel it. I see it. And this is what I'm going to shoot. And then I'm shooting the whole time, even if I don't like anything, because I don't really, really, really know until I feel it. And I like all the pictures I take, but it's really the ones that I like the best are the ones that happen when I'm really, really connected. And I don't really know that happens anywhere in between the session. It's exhausting. I mean, I get very, very emotionally exhausted because I put all of my heart into it, but it is a very intuitive thing. I don't think about it. I don't expect really anything. I don't know how they're going to be. I don't know what they're going to wear. I don't really know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to feel until they show up. So it's both scary and exciting in a lot of ways. And it's always new because it's always somebody else. But the weird thing is that it happens with still life too. Like I have a series of chocolates. I don't know if you saw those chocolates on my website. I mean, it's really weird, but it happens. I feel like, and even with the ghost portraits, the fabrics, I mean, to me, they're like portraits, and I'm just looking for that piece that really makes me feel like I'm getting the expression of this configuration.
I see.
I don't know if that explains it. I mean, my prep work isn't that big. My prep work is my whole life, really. I guess that's what it is. My preparation is anticipation, and everything that I have been through my entire life goes into my anticipation, really. It's all just a mental state.
I see. And you were talking about that you try to get a connection with the people that the one that, in this case, this women that you're gonna photograph. How is that you choose them? Or they are coming to you?
Both. I mean, sometimes people ask me. Sometimes, I mean, most often I ask them. But it's a strange thing. I have a feeling about someone. It's a combination of whether I think they'll be like good in pictures, whether they fit a particular project I'm shooting, but also probably most importantly, whether I think that they will show something on their face that I understand, that's mine. So it's usually a sense of a certain kind of vulnerability in the face, a certain kind of tenderness in the face that interests me. It doesn't mean that other people don't have a certain tenderness, but it's a tenderness that I understand. Like there's something in those faces that I think I feel that. I feel something that I want to photograph, and it must be pulling from something that I understand. It's not real conscious. It's a hard question because people ask me this all the time, and I'm never quite sure. But I think it's a combination of all those things.
I see. Thank you. And let's see. The next one is this. Okay. Okay. How do you, well, this is more about when you were here in Guatemala.
I was what? I'm sorry?
When you were here in Guatemala, how do you feel about displaying your photographs in Guatemala?
Amazing. I love it. I love it. I'd like to do more.
We saw some of your promotionals in one of the classes, right?
Yeah.
And well, we have a picture of, I don't know if you remember, well, it's from the pictures of the ghost. So that was very beautiful. And we're glad to know that you're so excited.
Beautiful, actually. Sorry, what?
Oh, we are glad to know that you're excited to be showing your work here. Because, well, at the end, it's something that I guess is going to help everybody to understand people with a different point of view. Learn from another people and try maybe to do different things. Maybe try to be out of the circle, out of the square, and try something different, more about, like you said, something more about yourself, talk about your feelings, what you think, and everything else. Now we have another question here. Okay. How do you think that the Guatemalan youth can exploit your photography work?
How the Guatemalan youth can do what?
Exploit your photography work.
Explore.
Exploit your photography work.
Exploit? I'm not sure what you mean.
Yeah, exploit.
I'm not sure what you mean.
well, how do you think that Guatemalan young people can take from your work?
Can take?
Mm-hmm.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Yes.
What I think they can take from my work.
That's right.
Well, I mean, I don't know if this is specifically for Guatemalan people. I think this is for any people. I mean, my work is very much about like what makes us human. So whether you're Guatemalan or whether you're American or whether you're French or Greek like I am or whatever, I think that my work explores the sort of vulnerabilities and fears and the things that humans kind of keep hidden inside of them that makes us sort of like fearful and shameful and afraid and vulnerable. And I think that I look at those things and I show those things in my work. I think there's something, it may not be obvious what it is, but I think there's something about my photographs that there's like an uncomfortableness to it. And I think it teaches, I mean, my hope certainly is that people will look at my work and especially youth, because I think that youth are more open to these kinds of things. I think youth are more open to looking at their own fears. That's, I mean, I'm not saying that adults don't do it, but I think they do it less. Like you guys still have a really, you know what I mean? You're young and you have your whole lives ahead of you, so it makes a lot of sense to do it. It makes a lot of sense for everyone to do it, but most people don't. But I think that looking at my work, I think some of my work is uncomfortable. And I think that uncomfortableness is what exactly we should be looking at. I think if something makes someone uncomfortable, the way to learn from it is to look at it and understand why it makes you uncomfortable for yourself. So I see it really as actually an interesting way to learn about ourselves. You know? I mean, I am so much like, you know, trying to sort of not illustrate what I feel. I think a lot of photography illustrates people's issues, but mine, I think if you look at my work, you're not seeing a document of my issues. What you're seeing is a document. It's almost like you're looking at me. I mean, you're like literally looking at me when you look at these photographs. And my fears and vulnerabilities are, I mean, they're everybody's, but, you know, they're afraid of not being loved. They're afraid of, you know, being abandoned, afraid of, you know, being, you know, pushed aside. The things that, like, you know, afraid of being powerless, afraid of not, you know, not having any power, afraid of not being able to speak. And so I think that, I think anyone can actually what the works say and be open to them, you know.
You're right. Well, I think the same. Young people is the one that's going to be more open to learn and try to do different things, like you said. And I have two more questions for you. That I bypassed those at the beginning.
I think that's also why I like to photograph young people, because I find their faces are also more open.
That's right.
You know, I mean, like a lot of they are more of young people, and they do tend to show more too. They're less protected, you know, so they haven't covered so much up.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because I guess maybe it happened to me before, but you're right. Now that you're saying that in that way, I guess it's the same. Now about the next question is, which of your awards are you proud the most and why?
Of my awards?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I like them all. I don't know. It's not specifically about the award for me. It's more about feeling seen. I think it's, you know, I like the sense that when someone sees my work, that they've seen me. When someone understands my work, that they've understood me. And feeling understood is, for me, the most important award, if you want to call it that. I mean, I do it to be seen. I think that's, again, I don't think this is individual to me, truthfully. I think that as human beings, we all really want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to feel that like we exist. We want to know that we exist. We want to feel that people understand that we exist. And that's really the best piece for me. I mean, it's not that I don't love to get awards, but it's just the notion of feeling seen and heard and acknowledged, and that my point of view is resonating with people. That's the most important piece for me.
I see. And this is this is I have one more. Who is the photographer? But the photographer that inspires you, or who was your photographer that inspires you at the beginning to take photos on the college, or it's you never got a reference before?
I'm not that inspired by photography, truthfully. I'm really more inspired by literature and by painting. I think my work tends to be kind of more like literate and like psychological than it does. Photography feels very often to be much more documentary of sorts, and I really am not interested in that. Personally, for my own work. I think people make great work that way. It's just not my interest. But I think that the kind of works, even, photographic works that inspire me the most, I can't say who helped me start, because I wasn't thinking about other photographers at the time when I first started. But the work that inspires me the most is work that is transparent, work that is very much clear that somebody is making this work, and I know why they're making this work. Like, I want to know why someone is making work. So I'm the most interested in people's work who are very transparent about it. They don't have to necessarily talk about it, but that I can tell very clearly it's not some random topic they picked, but it's a topic that is very clearly important to them for for an important reason, and that I can feel that. I'm not saying they have to talk about it. If they don't want to talk about it, I understand that. But I want to be able to know why. So, like Diane Arbus fascinates me still to this day. I mean, I still teach that work to my students, and it's very, very inspiring. Richard Avedon even. And it's not that I loved their photographs so much, but what I loved is the urgency that their psyches brought to the photographs. It was very clear, like, if you research those people's lives, what they're bringing to that work. And to me, that ability to bring what's most important to you into the work brings a certain amount of passion into the work and intensity, and that really, really fascinates me.
Okay, so we are gonna take Richard Avedon, you said, and Diane Arbus, right?
For instance, yeah.
Perfect.
For instance, there are other people, but those are certainly two very, famous examples. Especially if you understand, where they're coming from, you can really, really. I think you can see the intensity in the work.
Right.
But once you also know, like when I lecture about, I try to inspire my students by showing them the work and where the work is coming from and how it's so very connected. So I'm not that interested in work that doesn't seem to have any connection to the individual or has a random, a loose connection. That doesn't interest me that much. I want to know why you care so deeply about something that you would do this. That fascinates me.
And do you teach them about your, because you said you were more inspired from art, but in the way of paintings and literature. Do you show your students, or do you teach them about what really inspires you from paintings in this case? Do you talk to them about your favorite painters and things like that, or just about photographers?
I do show paintings. I don't really talk about literature that much. Not in the classroom specifically. I mean, I don't teach that much. I think if I were more of a full-time teacher, I would maybe get into it, but I don't have, my classes aren't that long. You know what I mean? I don't teach that much. But I do, certainly in my slideshows, I show some paintings. It depends on the class. It depends on, you know what I mean, how much time we have together. But I think by looking at my work, you can see sort of like the influence from painting too. I mean, I mostly teach them to really figure out what they care about. You know, so if I talk to them about me, I may talk about paintings, but if I'm not talking about me, you know, not everybody is inspired by paintings and literature. That just happens to be me. I mean, I'm inspired by music too, but I feel like that's a very personal thing. That's just kind of where it's coming from. I really teach more about trying to get each person to find what is most inspiring for them, because if photography is inspiring to you, then that's great. I mean, it just has to come from has to be your path. And I think what I try to do is really encourage students more to understand why they do what they do. You know, why do you like this? And if you like it, then keep going in that direction, because the more you work, you know, you start intuitively, and it may not work at the beginning, but the more you really get specific with yourself about what you care about. And this takes time. It doesn't happen in, you know, first, second, third year. It happens over time, but you just do it slowly. You just keep finding things that are close to your heart and trying to understand why you did it. And often you don't really understand it while you're doing it. I mean, I don't even always understand why I'm doing something, but 2 years later, I look back on a project that I finished and I'm like, oh yeah, now I see what I was doing, and now I see why I like that I was so interested in that, and now I also see how it fits into the rest of my work. You know, and I think when I do as like a lecture now, like on a whole series of my works on the trajectory of my career, it's very clear to me that there is a thread that runs through all of it, and it has really I've just variations on the theme. I truly believe that as artists, we each of us have like one theme inside of us, and the goal, the issue, or the difficulty is to find different ways to come at that issue. You know, just keep finding different ways, new ways to express that, and so that you continuously learn from what you're doing, that you continuously challenge yourself to understand what it is that. Just to keep challenging yourself, really. You know, so you keep growing, because the goal is to live a purposeful life. You know, a purposeful and committed and life that is really, really meaningful to you. Like, it makes such a difference, you know, to have that kind of challenge in your life. Really, it's great. It's a self. You know, it's not about anybody else. It's really all about you, learning more about you. And the more I think that you learn about yourself, the more each of us learns about ourselves, the more we understand ourselves, the more compassionate of a human being that we become. You know, the better person we are, the better citizen we are, the less harmful we are to other people. You know, the more we understand ourselves, the more we can understand other people, and that makes us better people. It makes us more democratic, really.
Right. And I have the last question for you. And could you describe your photography work or style in 3 words? Or do you think that you can do it all in 3? Or you can talk about more than 3 words if you want.
3 words? Direct, intense, and restrained.
Perfect.
That's a great question, actually. It's a really, really interesting question. I might ask my students that same question. That's really very interesting.
Well, I guess maybe because it's maybe too hard to just choose. Well, for at least on my personal work, I will never be able to just choose 3 words. I guess maybe I'm gonna just maybe say more, but well, I guess that it's really hard to just choose 3 words.
Maybe it's easier when you get older like me and you've been doing it longer. Maybe that's easier, because it didn't seem that hard to me. But and maybe when I get off the phone with you, maybe I'll think of tons more things and think I was wrong, but that's it. But what I'm curious about is why you picked my work.
Well,
I'm curious, you guys, all of you, see in my work. Like, what do you see in there? Like, what do you see, and why did you pick it?
was very interested because everybody chose a different one. I guess it was chosen by Jimena or by you, I guess. It was by Jimena, but she was the one that it was more interested in your work. We saw your work because it was actually on Fototeca, and also we saw your promotionals. But the reason for the one at the end we chose do the interview to you, it was because at the end, like everybody actually has a different photographer. I was I sent a request to Mario Testino. Camila sent a request to whom? She doesn't remember that. But at the end, we just decided to do it with you because we were finally agreed that it was something that would be interested for the three of us. So we have in common, like, well, let's choose Lydia because for us it's gonna be something more in common. If she has something that is gonna like for well, it likes to Camila, it likes to Jimena, and it likes to me as well. So that's why we at the end we choose her to do the interview to you in your work.
But I guess one of my question is what about my work?
What is that we like the most about your work?
What do you see in the work, or whether you like it or not? What do you see in it? Yeah.
Well, the ones that I like the most to me are the ones for the ghost, because they're very, I don't know, like you say, they're more psychological. They're talking more about you because you're not using people in those photos. I guess you're not using people, right?
I'm not. They're all psychological, though. I don't think they're more psychological than the other ones, but no, I'm not using people in those.
Well, for me, those are the ones that look more mysterious, I guess. I guess that's the word I want to use. And the next one that I really like the most are the ones that for the chocolates, because the light is on those photos are very precious. And the ones that you have on I guess it's your property, it's on the garden, and it has some kind of distortion on those pictures. Like,
oh, yeah.
I guess that you did that with your lens, right? Or you did that distortion in a different way?
It's a large format camera, so I can do it with the bellows.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a box camera, a view camera, and so you can do that, the bellows.
I see. And Camila is gonna tell
what
you.
I like about your work is your color palette. It's like cold. The location.
It's cool.
The location, and now I know it's your farm, and that's really cool. They look like paints. The ones you have, ¿cómo se dice atrás?
In the background.
In the background, they look like paints. And,
yeah, they do.
And I love working with women as you do, and I love your work. Yeah.
Thank you.
We wanted to ask you if we can take a selfie with you.
Oh, yeah. Can we?
Yeah. How? Sure.
With the cell phone.
How do you do it?
¿Por qué no le decís a la toman?
Creo que se fueron. It's for our Instagram.
Tómala tú.
Okay. Okay, así que la tomo.
No. O sea, volteate.
Okay, ¿cómo? Es que aquí está la mesa.
We're gonna move the table.
Ahí está. Solo que hay que
No, yo
I have short arms, so. Okay.
Ready?
Send it to me.
Okay.
Oh, sure.
So where am I? I don't see me.
No.
Oh.
Now?
Now?
Oh, okay, I see. Hi.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Send it to me.
Okay, I will. On your Instagram. I tag you on your Instagram.
Oops.
You have a really cool garden and farm.
Yeah, I'm going to take a picture too.
Oh.
Do I? Yes, I do have a very cool. Okay, so hold on, let me take it too. No. Yeah, I do actually. I have a beautiful farm actually. It's there were no trees on here when we moved here, but we planted for 10 or 12 years maybe. We planted every tree. We planted about 1,000 trees every single year for years and years, and it ended up. It is beautiful actually. Lots of trees. There's a pond. It's beautiful.
It is. Well, I didn't know about either that was your farm. So, but I guess it's one of the places that if I was you, I prefer to be. Oh, I would rather to be in my home. And now I understand why is that you do all your work in your house. Because I will do the same. By having a farm so beautiful, so.
I know, that's why I can't move. It's really big, and my children left the house. You know, they're older, but it's kind of too big for us, really, the house and stuff. But we can't leave because because we planted every tree here, so we can't leave the trees, and because it is the site of all my work. Right. Yeah, it's kind of great, actually.
And are you working in something right now?
Yeah, so right now I'm working on, there's 2 projects. One of them is called Promised Land, which is on my website. It's the girls with the lipstick. Mm-hmm. And then there's another project that I'm working on that you can see on Instagram. Some of it, it's called Sleeping Beauty. And it's women and girls lying down on the grass, like they look kind of very vulnerable and powerless. Mm-hmm. And I've been really looking at vulnerability and what it feels like. You know, like the pictures are very much about the feelings of powerlessness and about what it feels like to be hiding things. You know, you end up feeling kind of restrained and restricted. Yeah.
I have a last question. Do you prefer using natural light or studio light?
I only use natural light.
Okay.
Everything I do is all natural light. Even the inside pictures, I have a studio with like a south-facing window. Oh. So everything is natural light. And, you know, I use film, too. I don't know if I told you that, but I also use film. So it's film and it's all natural light. I can never make light look as pretty as natural light. And also natural light I think is interesting because it's challenging because it's always different. So I have to really, I've had to understand light, you know, very carefully, and I still don't understand all of it. It's you know, it's something that goes on forever. So it's always a challenge. It's always different. And a lot of it is left to chance. It's not all my control. You know, like there's just things that happen with the light that are surprising to me that I would have never been able to think of. So, yeah, it's all natural.
I think it's the same is beautiful. Natural light is beautiful. I think the same is beautiful.
It's beautiful, yeah. It's something about, it's natural. It's not fake, you know. That's the other piece of my work. I'm really, again, if I were to, those 3 words, I guess another word I could have used was it's very real. You know, there's no tricks in my work. It's really just, it is what it is. You know, I'm not hiding anything. I'm not making things look prettier. I'm not making people look prettier. I'm not trying to bring out the nice things. I'm really looking at whatever it is that I see. So it's honest, I suppose, is another one of those words I could use, those 3 words. Yeah. I think it's real.
You have 4 now.
Maybe 5. Yeah. So what are you going to do with this? You're going to show it to your class?
Well, yes, it's actually something that we must show them, and as well, it's going to work for the students for next year, because we saw some interviews from other previous years. Yeah, so it's something that Mauricio always do, but as all of you know, we're going to prepare an interview. Thinking a photographer, make an interview, try to investigate them, and well, at the end we're gonna just make groups and do the interview. So
yeah, I did this I think a couple years ago with somebody too. Somebody else did one of these with me too, just one person.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah.
Like last year or like before that, like
from here?
Yeah, from there. Maybe it was the year before. I can't remember her name right now. She did these beautiful photos. She was one of my students at La Fototeca when I did the workshop.
Oh.
I can't right now remember her name. It was maybe 2 years ago, or maybe 3. I don't know. It can't be 3 years ago, I don't think, but maybe 2.
And where are you coming to do one of your workshops at the Fototeca again? Because we're gonna just do the course with you.
Well, I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh, where are you coming again to work with the Fototeca again? So we can just do assignment and. Or do you know?
Well, when they ask me.
Oh, okay.
No,
So we're gonna
they
ask.
have to ask me.
We're gonna ask Mamu to give you a call, I guess.
Yeah.
Dude, I'd love to come down. I loved Guatemala. I loved it.
And
yeah, I came down with my husband, and my son actually came down too. It was really great.
Yeah, we have a nice weather. That's true. It's not very safe in the city, but forgetting about that, yes, I think the same. We have a very nice weather, and we have a lot of places that are very beautiful. But well, we're gonna ask Mamu, and well, we hope to see you here very soon. I really
Good. I'd love to come.
I
Cool.
really appreciate that you took the time to give us this interview. I hope that we can just do it again in the future. I guess, and maybe more students from the Fototeca are gonna do it again because we're very new here in Guatemala. So I guess that they're gonna do it maybe later. But we're really glad that we just did it now, and thank you very much.